Have you ever heard of a fruit so powerful that researchers are studying it for its potential effects on inflammation, blood vessel health, metabolism, and even some of the biological pathways involved in cancer development? It sounds like the kind of claim you'd normally ignore. After all, every few months, another food is promoted as the next miracle solution. But what if the real story is far more interesting than the headlines? Because according to many scientists, one particular fruit contains a unique combination of natural compounds that may influence some of the same biological systems involved in aging, chronic inflammation, and cellular health. And unlike many trendy supplements, this fruit has been consumed for thousands of years. Today, we're exploring the science behind pomegranates, the fruit that Dr. William Lee has frequently discussed when talking about foods that support the body's natural defense systems. We'll separate scientific evidence from hype, examine what researchers have actually discovered, and uncover why this ancient fruit continues to attract attention in modern laboratories around the world. And perhaps most importantly, we'll discuss what these findings may mean for your long-term health. Because the most fascinating discovery isn't what scientists found inside the fruit, it's what happens after you eat it. For decades, inflammation was viewed primarily as a response to injury or infection. You cut your finger, you catch a virus, your immune system reacts, problem solved. But researchers now understand that inflammation is far more complex. In fact, low-grade chronic inflammation has become one of the most studied biological processes in modern medicine. Evidence suggests that persistent inflammation may be associated with cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, cognitive decline, joint problems, and many age-related conditions. What's particularly concerning is that chronic inflammation often develops quietly. No alarms, no obvious symptoms, no immediate warning signs. Many people can feel relatively normal while inflammatory processes slowly accumulate over years. And this is where nutrition enters the conversation. Scientists have increasingly focused on how everyday foods interact with inflammatory pathways throughout the body. Some foods appear to promote inflammation when consumed excessively. Others may help support a more balanced immune response. However, that's not the most interesting part. Researchers eventually discovered that certain foods don't simply provide vitamins and minerals, they contain bioactive compounds that actively communicate with cells. These compounds can influence gene expression, cellular signaling, oxidative stress, and immune function. In other words, food is not merely fuel. Food is information. And among the foods attracting scientific attention, pomegranates stand out for a very specific reason. Their chemistry is remarkably unusual. At first glance, a pomegranate doesn't seem extraordinary. It's just a fruit with ruby red seeds, sweet, tart, refreshing. Yet hidden within those seeds and surrounding tissues are hundreds of biologically active compounds. Among the most studied are polyphenols, including punicalagins, ellagic acid, anthocyanins, and various tannins. These compounds belong to a larger family of plant chemicals that researchers often associate with antioxidant activity. Now, whenever people hear the word antioxidant, many immediately think of neutralizing free radicals. And while that's partially true, modern science has revealed a more nuanced picture. Researchers believe some antioxidants may act less like shields and more like messengers. Rather than simply blocking damage, they may activate the body's own protective systems. This distinction is important because one of the most exciting developments in longevity research involves understanding how certain foods may stimulate natural cellular defense mechanisms. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. When scientists began studying pomegranate compounds, they discovered something surprising. The fruit itself may not be the entire source of its benefits. In fact, the most important transformation happens inside your gut. After consuming pomegranate, certain gut microbes interact with compounds called elagitannins. These microbes convert them into substances known as urolithins. Most notably, a compound called urolithin A has generated enormous scientific interest. Why? because researchers observe that urolithin A appears to interact with pathways involved in mitochondrial health. Mitochondria are often described as the power plants of cells. They generate energy that allows tissues and organs to function properly. But as we age, mitochondria can become less efficient. Damaged components may accumulate. Energy production may decline. Scientists have long searched for ways to support mitochondrial quality control, and evidence from laboratory and early human studies has suggested that urolithin A may help activate cellular recycling processes associated with maintaining healthier mitochondria. This process is sometimes called mitophagy. Think of it as a quality control system. Old or damaged cellular components are identified and removed, making room for healthier replacements. Researchers are actively investigating whether supporting this process could contribute to healthier aging. Now, it's important to be precise. No food has been shown to stop aging. No fruit can guarantee longevity. But scientists are increasingly interested in how dietary compounds interact with mechanisms linked to healthy aging. And pomegranates have become part of that conversation. Yet the mitochondrial story is only one chapter. Most people never hear about what happened next. As researchers explored pomegranate biology further, they began examining its relationship with blood vessels. This area of research matters enormously because cardiovascular health remains one of the most important predictors of longevity. Every organ in the body depends on blood flow. Your brain, your heart, your muscles, your kidneys, everything relies on a healthy vascular system. One factor that helps maintain blood vessel function is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide helps blood vessels relax and expand. This supports circulation and allows oxygen and nutrients to reach tissues more effectively. Over time, oxidative stress and inflammation may impair this process. Researchers have therefore searched for foods that may support endothelial function, the health of the inner lining of blood vessels. Several studies have investigated whether pomegranate consumption may influence markers associated with vascular health. While findings vary, evidence suggests that compounds within pomegranates may help support normal endothelial function and protect nitric oxide activity. This is particularly intriguing because vascular aging often begins decades before symptoms appear. Long before a heart attack, long before a stroke, long before noticeable cardiovascular disease, subtle changes may already be occurring, and researchers increasingly believe that daily dietary patterns influence this trajectory. But researchers later discovered something even more fascinating. The relationship between inflammation and blood vessels appears deeply interconnected. When inflammation rises, vascular function may suffer. When vascular health declines, inflammatory signals may increase. It's a feedback loop, a cycle, and breaking that cycle has become a major focus of preventive medicine. This brings us to one of the reasons pomegranates have earned so much attention. Studies have repeatedly examined their effects on inflammatory biomarkers. Inflammation itself is incredibly complex. There is no single inflammation switch. Instead, there are networks of signaling molecules, immune cells, enzymes, and biochemical pathways. Researchers studying pomegranate compounds have observed interactions with several of these pathways in laboratory and clinical settings. For example, some studies suggest reductions in markers associated with inflammatory activity after regular pomegranate consumption. Other research indicates potential effects on oxidative stress markers. While results are not always identical across studies, the overall body of evidence continues to attract scientific interest. And this matters because chronic inflammation often acts like background noise within the body. You may not notice it day to day, yet over years, it may influence multiple systems simultaneously. This is one reason longevity experts increasingly focus on reducing unnecessary inflammatory burden through lifestyle choices, diet, sleep, exercise, stress management. And this is where many people misunderstand the science. They search for a single superfood, a single supplement, a single solution. But healthy aging rarely works that way. Instead, researchers describe a cumulative effect, small decisions repeated consistently, a nutrient rich meal, a daily walk, a good night's sleep, maintaining social connections, managing stress. Each action may seem minor on its own. Together, they shape long term outcomes. Pomegranates appear most promising when viewed through this lens, not as a magic fruit, but as one component of an overall dietary pattern associated with health. Yet there is another area where scientists became especially curious: cancer biology. Now, this topic often generates sensational headlines, and it's important to approach it carefully. When people read phrases like starves cancer, they may imagine that eating a specific food can eliminate disease. That is not what the evidence shows. Cancer is extraordinarily complex. There are hundreds of different forms. Each behaves differently. Each involves unique genetic and biological factors. However, researchers have investigated how pomegranate compounds interact with cellular pathways involved in cancer biology. Laboratory studies have observed effects on inflammation, oxidative stress, cell signaling, and processes related to cell growth. Scientists have also explored how certain compounds may influence the environment surrounding cells. These findings are scientifically interesting because they help researchers better understand a relationship between nutrition and cellular health. Yet the key point is this: most of these findings do not mean that eating pomegranates prevents or treats cancer. Instead, they reveal biological mechanisms that scientists continue to study. And this distinction is essential. The value of nutrition science often lies in understanding risk reduction and long-term support rather than expecting dramatic immediate outcomes. Yet the real discovery came years later. Researchers began realizing that many of the same pathways involved in inflammation, vascular health, metabolism, immune function, and aging overlap in unexpected ways. Rather than existing as separate systems, they function like interconnected networks. Improve one area, and benefits may ripple outward. Support metabolic health, and inflammatory burden may decrease. Support vascular health, and brain function may benefit. Improve sleep, and immune regulation may improve. Everything is connected. And foods rich in diverse bioactive compounds may influence multiple pathways simultaneously. That's one reason scientists remain so interested in pomegranates. Not because they do one extraordinary thing, but because they appear to interact with numerous biological systems at once, and we're only beginning to understand the full picture. In the next part, we'll explore what the latest research reveals about pomegranates and brain health, metabolism, exercise performance, gut microbiome function, and healthy aging. We'll also examine how much pomegranate researchers typically study, whether juice is as effective as the whole fruit, and the surprising mistake many people make when trying to gain the potential benefits. Welcome back. By now, we've explored why pomegranates have attracted attention from researchers studying inflammation, vascular function, and the biology of aging. But some of the most fascinating discoveries emerge when we look beyond the heart and into another organ that profoundly influences how we age: the brain. Most people think about brain health only when memory problems begin to appear. Yet scientists now understand that changes associated with cognitive aging may begin years or even decades before symptoms become noticeable. This has shifted the focus of research. Instead of waiting for problems to develop, researchers increasingly investigate lifestyle factors that may help support long-term brain function throughout adulthood. And this is where pomegranates entered the conversation once again. The brain consumes enormous amounts of energy. Although it represents only a small percentage of body weight, it uses a surprisingly large share of the body's available fuel. To function properly, brain cells require healthy blood flow, efficient energy production, and protection from excessive oxidative stress. Over time, disruptions in any of these areas may influence cognitive performance. Researchers have therefore examined whether compounds found in pomegranates may affect factors associated with brain health. Some studies suggest that polyphenols may help support vascular function within the brain, potentially improving delivery of oxygen and nutrients to neural tissues. Others have explored the fruit's influence on inflammatory pathways and oxidative stress, both of which are increasingly studied in relation to cognitive aging. However, that's not the most intriguing part. Scientists began noticing that many of the compounds consumed in food never actually reach the brain in their original form. Instead, they are transformed, modified, broken down, reassembled, and much of this process involves the gut microbiome. For years, the digestive system was viewed primarily as a food processing organ. Today, researchers often describe it as an ecosystem. Trillions of microorganisms interact continuously with food, metabolism, immunity, and even signals that travel to the brain. This communication network is often called the gut brain axis, and evidence suggests it may play a larger role in health than previously imagined. Remember the compound we discussed earlier, urolithin A? Researchers believe the ability to produce this compound depends largely on the composition of an individual's gut microbiome. In other words, two people could eat the same pomegranate and generate very different amounts of biologically active metabolites. This finding surprised many scientists because it suggested that nutrition is not simply about what you eat. It's also about what your microbiome does with what you eat. And this may help explain why individuals sometimes respond differently to the same foods. One person experiences measurable changes in biological markers. Another experiences little change at all. The difference may not be the food itself. The difference may be the microbes processing it. And this is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Researchers studying longevity increasingly believe that dietary diversity plays an important role in maintaining a healthy microbiome. Different plant foods contain different fibers and phytochemicals. These compounds nourish different microbial populations. The result is a more diverse ecosystem. Many scientists associate greater microbial diversity with better overall resilience. This means that the potential value of pomegranates may extend beyond their direct compounds. They may also contribute to a dietary pattern that supports a healthier microbiome environment. Yet researchers were not finished uncovering surprises. Attention soon shifted toward metabolism, and this area affects nearly everyone. When people hear the word metabolism, they often think about weight loss, but metabolism encompasses far more than body weight. It includes how the body produces energy, regulates blood sugar, stores nutrients, and manages countless biochemical reactions every second of every day. As we age, metabolic efficiency often changes. Muscle mass may gradually decline, insulin sensitivity may decrease, energy regulation may become less efficient. Researchers therefore investigate foods that may help support metabolic health over the long term. Several studies have explored the relationship between pomegranate consumption and markers associated with glucose regulation and metabolic function. While findings vary and more research is needed, some evidence suggests potential benefits related to insulin sensitivity and metabolic health markers. What's particularly important is understanding why. Many of the mechanisms researchers investigate involve inflammation and oxidative stress. Remember that these processes do not operate in isolation. Inflammation influences metabolism. Metabolism influences inflammation. The systems constantly communicate. This interconnectedness appears again and again throughout longevity science. What once seemed like separate health issues increasingly look like different pieces of the same puzzle. And the deeper researchers look, the more connections they discover. But most people never hear about one of the most practical areas of pomegranate research: exercise performance and recovery. At first, this might seem surprising. After all, pomegranates are rarely discussed alongside fitness. Yet scientists became interested in how their compounds might influence blood flow and exercise-related physiology. Physical activity places increased demands on muscles. Oxygen delivery rises. Energy production accelerates. Recovery processes activate. Researchers have explored whether pomegranate-derived compounds may support some of these responses. Several studies have examined exercise performance, muscle recovery, and blood flow measurements following pomegranate consumption. Although findings differ depending on study design and population, some results suggest improvements in certain performance and recovery markers. Now, this does not mean pomegranates replace training. They do not build fitness automatically. But researchers remain interested in whether nutrition can help optimize the body's response to exercise. And this reveals a broader principle. Many foods do not act independently. Their greatest value may emerge when combined with healthy behaviors. Exercise stimulates beneficial adaptations. Nutritious foods provide supportive compounds. Sleep facilitates recovery. Together, they create conditions that may support long term health. This combination effect appears repeatedly throughout scientific literature, and it highlights an important lesson. The question is rarely, what is the single best food? The better question is, how do multiple healthy habits work together? Yet the real discovery came when scientists started studying healthy aging more directly. For decades, researchers searched for individual causes of aging. One cause, one mechanism, one answer. But biology turned out to be far more complicated. Aging involves many interconnected processes: cellular stress, mitochondrial function, inflammation, immune regulation, metabolic efficiency, protein maintenance, vascular health, DNA stability. The list continues. Modern longevity research increasingly focuses on supporting these systems simultaneously. Rather than targeting one pathway, scientists look for strategies that may positively influence several at once. This is one reason foods rich in diverse phytochemicals continue attracting scientific attention. Pomegranates contain dozens upon dozens of compounds that may interact with different biological pathways. Not one compound, not one mechanism, an entire network of molecules. And researchers believe this complexity may be important. Nature rarely works through isolated systems. Biology is interconnected. Nutrition appears to be as well. So, what does this mean in practical terms? How much pomegranate are researchers typically studying? This is one of the most common questions people ask. In research settings, amounts vary considerably. Some studies examine whole fruit, others use juice, some investigate extracts, others focus on purified compounds. Because study designs differ, there is no universally accepted amount that guarantees a specific outcome. And that's actually an important reminder. Nutrition science rarely provides one-size-fits-all answers. Individual needs, dietary patterns, health status, activity levels, and personal preferences all matter. However, many nutrition experts encourage incorporating a variety of colorful fruits into a balanced eating pattern. Pomegranates can certainly be part of that approach. But researchers later discovered something many consumers overlook. The form matters. Whole fruit and juice are not identical. Whole pomegranate contains fiber along with its naturally occurring compounds. Fiber plays an important role in digestion, satiety, metabolic health, and microbiome support. Juice retains many beneficial polyphenols, but typically contains less fiber. This doesn't automatically make juice unhealthy. It simply means the nutritional profile differs. Understanding this distinction helps people make informed choices. Some individuals enjoy eating the seeds. Others prefer juice. Some include both in moderation. The larger goal is maintaining a dietary pattern rich in nutrient-dense foods rather than obsessing over a single item. And this brings us to perhaps the biggest mistake people make. They expect immediate results. Modern culture often encourages quick outcomes, rapid transformations, instant changes, fast solutions. But biology usually operates on a different timeline. The processes associated with healthy aging develop gradually, and the habits that support healthy aging tend to work gradually as well. Researchers studying longevity repeatedly emphasize consistency, not perfection, consistency. A healthy meal today matters. A healthy meal tomorrow matters too. The walk you take this evening matters. The sleep you get tonight matters. The stress you manage this week matters. Small actions accumulate, and over years, those actions may produce meaningful differences. This perspective changes how we think about foods like pomegranates. Instead of asking whether a fruit can transform health overnight, we ask a more useful question. Can this food contribute to a long-term lifestyle pattern associated with better health outcomes? That is where the strongest scientific case exists. Not dramatic promises, not miracle claims, but sustained, evidence based habits. And perhaps that's what makes the pomegranate story so compelling. It represents a larger shift occurring in modern health science. Researchers are moving away from the search for magic solutions. Instead, they are uncovering how everyday choices interact with deeply complex biological systems: the foods we eat, the microbes living within us, the quality of our sleep, the amount we move, the way we manage stress, the strength of our social connections. All of these factors influence health in ways that scientists are still working to fully understand. Pomegranates happen to be one fascinating example of this larger story. A fruit once valued primarily for its flavor is now being studied for its potential interactions with inflammation, vascular function, mitochondrial health, metabolism, the microbiome, and healthy aging. Not because it is magical, but because biology itself is extraordinary. The deeper researchers investigate, the more they discover that health is rarely determined by one decision. It emerges from thousands of decisions made repeatedly over time. And that's where the greatest opportunity lies. Not in chasing the newest trend, not in searching for the perfect supplement, not in expecting a single food to do everything, but in building a lifestyle that consistently supports the body's natural systems. Because every meal is a signal, every habit is information, every choice contributes to the environment in which your cells operate. And while no one can control every aspect of aging, science increasingly suggests that our daily behaviors influence how that journey unfolds. The decisions we make today may seem small: adding more colorful fruits to a meal, taking a walk after dinner, prioritizing sleep, managing stress, choosing foods that nourish both the body and the microbiome. Individually, those actions may appear insignificant, but over years and decades, they compound. They shape how we feel, how we function, and how well we maintain our independence and vitality as we grow older. That's why understanding the science matters, because the goal is not simply living longer. The goal is living better for longer, and sometimes that journey begins with something as simple as looking at a familiar fruit through the lens of modern science.